going straight to his house. I don't care if he's there. I don't care if he's in his underwear. I'm banging on the door. He's gonna come out. He's gonna ride this bike. And so, hey man, you gotta go ride the bike. He's like, no, come with me. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I start following him. Just jumped on the highway. We ran probably like 2.5, 3 miles up.
Yes.
On the way, we're like, you know, I would catch back up to him, and he'd be like, you know,
like a little kid.
Yeah, like a little kid. When we pulled over, he was so ecstatic. I mean, jumping up. He was like, oh my gosh, like, how did this ECU?
I was hitting it, and man, the power, the responsiveness, I mean, it was like a wild banshee. I was like, when we pulled, I was like, dude, this is awesome. Hey everyone, this is RJ Productions here today. I got Ray Weeks with me today, and we're gonna be talking about his bike, the new body style with the Impact Wiring Solutions, okay? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna actually go back to when Ray first purchased the bike, talking about stock form, the things he did when he did the stage 1, and as he did the Power Commander 6, he's gonna talk a little bit about that and why he ultimately went ahead and went with the Impact Wiring Solution. And we actually have some numbers that we're gonna go over and the process and things that he experienced with the bike, which was one of the reasons why he was looking for a solution. And when it actually came out, we started hearing all these great things about Impact Wiring Solutions and how that has turned out for him on his bike. So let's go back, Ray. Let's talk about the beginning, right? You purchased this bike. We both had these bikes right when they first came out. This is a 23.5 CVO 121 with the VVT. When it first came out, there was really nothing available for these bikes. I mean, it was just bone stock, not many options, a lot of trial and error. So tell us a little bit about how you came upon your stage 1 and kind of why you went with those routes.
Yeah, so basically like Ron said, there really wasn't much options for us when we first purchased the bike. What we ended up finding was that stuff was coming out like every week, every 2 weeks. And so I had already had the bike, rode it up out of Houston, had probably put like 200 or 300 miles on it already. So I was coming up on my first oil change. We had done some riding. Ron was still cruising his old bike.
Right.
Got to the point where I needed to get the first oil change. The mechanic that we utilize has been a tremendous blessing to us, very knowledgeable. He was sharing with us about the exhaust options. At the time, there was really no exhaust options. I mean, we had like...
Yes, they were trying out a lot of the older exhausts to see if they would actually work on these bikes,
right.
Which we found out there were a lot of old exhausts from the 114s, 117s, M8s that were out previous that still work for the bike. Some of them had a little bit of fitment troubles or kind of things that you had to figure out to make them work. Very, very little, very minor things. But the biggest issue that you were having was because this bike had the black chrome.
Right.
And there was not hardly any manufacturers out the market that had black chrome, and you were looking for a 2-in-1.
Right. And trying to keep the black chrome because, you know, I mean, when we buy, I mean, it's fine to have a black exhaust, but my old bike had already had a black exhaust.
Right.
And I was trying to stick with the black chrome. I really like the way it looks, the accents on the engines.
Yes.
So I wanted everything to kind of stay together. So Tom ended up telling us that S&S was coming out with a 2-in-1. It was black chrome. So I was super excited, and some time had went by. Basically, the exhaust had finally showed up. Got a call, took the bike in. While the bike was in there, we're getting the exhaust and everything. Basically, there was another...
It was a heavy air breather.
It was a heavy air breather. Well, actually, I think it was a flat wedge that had come out first.
Yes.
And I was like, you know, it didn't really look like... Aesthetically, it didn't really look good to me. I'm sure a lot of people like that style, but to me, it didn't have the style I was looking for. I've always liked the air breathers that kind of come off. Plus, for us, when we're talking about performance, we're trying to get as much airflow in to that intake to be able to keep that performance up on the bike. So probably like a day or two had gone by, and he calls me, he's like, hey, they have another heavy air breather that come out. And I was like, oh, really? So I got online, and it was the style that I thought was...
That elbow style.
Yeah, it had the elbow style, looked cool.
Yeah.
It would help us, you know, help with the performance side as far as getting air into there quickly. So anyway, so at the same time, I was able to get the exhaust and the heavy air breather. We got the first oil change, got all that done. Then they had, I got the bike, I rode it for a little while, and Ron's bike had finally had come in. Ron was getting some stuff done. And then the mechanic was sharing with us that the Harley had released the tuner for it. It was a Screaming Eagle.
The Screaming Eagle 1 tuner.
Tuner for it. So
yeah, so Ray went ahead, and so he already had the 2-in-1. He had put that on at first. He had put on the heavy breather. It was running okay, but it still was giving some backfire a lot of times, especially when on the beginning when you were running it.
Right.
And then like if we ran it really, really hard for a long time, and then you would come to a stop and kind of let it sit for a while, then it would kind of backfire every now and then. And so when the tuner came out, we thought that would be an option to help alleviate some of that.
Yep. So we got the tuner installed. It did good. It helped out a little bit. It definitely gave it a little more pep. I could see a big difference in the pep on the sport side, which obviously we know these bikes have different modes. You could set it in as you're riding, and when it was in sport mode, man, it had just so much more pep to it. I liked it, but I still had some issues with the exhaust. Basically, like Ron's saying, the back pressure was like very heavy. And I had asked the mechanic, do we need to do some tuning to be able to eliminate that and to allow the bike to run a little bit smoother, especially at idles?
Right.
And certain times, like when I was coming into a stop, I would see a lot of aggressive back pressure. So
yes.
And he said, we kind of looked at it. We looked at a couple different things. He said, man, really the tuner is set. You put it in, it's set from factory. It basically is going to change a few things internally in the bike.
Right.
But other than that, that was pretty much all it gave me was just a little more pep.
A little more pep. And some of the things some of you guys may know, when that Screaming Eagle tuner came out for these bikes at the beginning, it was locked down for at least about 6 months where they had no adjustability. The only thing they could do is pick like slip-ons, heavy air breather. They could pick those options, but there was no tuning or adjustments to it. I think now there are a little bit of adjustments that they can do on the Screaming Eagle. So
right.
I've heard guys actually dyno tuning the Screaming Eagle a little bit and having those adjustments. But when it first came out, it didn't have that.
Yeah, it was locked down.
It was locked down, and so it was just picking slip-ons, picking heavy breather. That was it, and so that's why it didn't make a big difference. Now, one of the things, I'm gonna go into the numbers a little bit on this bike, okay? So keep in mind, Ray was doing all these things right at the beginning of getting his bike because we were getting ready to take a trip, so we're trying to get as much things for the bike before Biker Blues and Barbecue, and so he had already started on that. So we did not do a completely stock dyno run on this bike. So from what I've seen from other videos and sources on the stock form on this bike, 107 seems to be the horsepower, and then the torque, I want to say it was around 120-ish. Don't quote me on that, but I can't remember the stock torque numbers that I've seen, but I know for the horsepower, 107 is what I've seen. So once Ray had did all of the stage 1 and everything and did the Screaming Eagle tuner, and then he was having the issues that we talked about, the backfiring. Sometimes whenever we would be riding, he would kill the bike. He would get ready to restart the bike. It didn't want to start. It kind of had some issues there. And then we had to kind of wait and let it sit and start. And then the other thing that he was having a little bit of issue with was his throttle response coming off the clutch. It was kind of a delay or something going on there that was affecting when he would take off. It just didn't feel right. And I know that we were talking about that. So we were looking for options. And so what happened was then we had heard about Power Commander coming out with the piggyback system that allowed you to do a little bit more adjustments to, I believe it's the
fuel and timing.
Was it the timing? I know it was a fuel.
Yep, fuel. It basically would allow you to do some adjustments to the fuel and timing side.
Okay.
And it was piggybacking, like you said, going out and around the stock ECU.
Okay.
To be able to allow you to change a little bit of the dynamic of the fuel.
Okay.
Basically the output, right? Because as Ron's saying, a lot of the things that I was experiencing was similar to it getting too much fuel. Even like the rough sometimes it wasn't all the time that I was seeing the rough idling, but there was time to time where I would feel the rough idling, or I would have the moments where I would take off out of a dead stop and I would have where like the bike felt like it was going to die. So I would have to feather it. One of the things I ended up doing until the Power Commander was available was I had the clutch adjusted to be able to allow me to get out of the gate a little bit faster versus having a long throw on the clutch. So we did some adjustments for me to be able to kind of work with the system and the way it was working and everything. But yeah, so the Power Commander allowed for fuel and timing. Now, we didn't really go that deep into the timing side.
Okay.
I think his focus was really to look at what the fuel and air ratio mix was, and Ron's going to share some of the numbers
So I'm gonna share some of the numbers here. So, and you should be able to, we're gonna put these on the video so you guys can actually see them. But basically, when it was stock with just the stage 1, with the heavy air breather, with the 2-in-1 S&S exhaust, basically his max power, horsepower, was 112. And then when he got to the torque on that, it was 122. So that was the numbers he was running with the stage 1. And then the rest of these numbers you guys are going to see on the graph here was Tom and Ray kind of going through the process with the Power Commander, making little adjustments, trying to see where they could get the best performance and get the bike to run the best. And so they ran it 3 other times. And so through those 3 other times, the horsepower ranged from like 114 to about 115, almost 116. And then on the torque, the power ranged from like a 123, almost 120, basically 124 to about 125 on that torque. So that's kind of what they were getting out of the bike with the stage 1 and the piggyback system, the Power Commander. Again, it wasn't like it was going to it didn't give it a lot more power. So you're talking about 3 horsepower and you're talking about 3 torque difference and improvement. But the thing was, it made the bike run better. And that was the most important thing that we were looking for, especially since there were no other options or solutions at that time.
Right, so if you're looking for something to be able to help with a little bit of the performance without having to put a lot of time into tuning or going through the process, the Power Commander has been around for years. It's been used on, a ton of different motorcycles, anywhere from Suzuki's to other Harleys that have, 114s and stuff like that. So the Power Commander has been around for years.
Yes.
The software and the programming for it is very, very user-friendly. I've heard a lot of people have always had great feedbacks about being able to get in and make the adjustments and stuff on their own without even going to like a test and tune or a dyno to have the stuff done by somebody that does it all the time.
Yes.
You can make some minor adjustments on your own. And with the mechanic helping us, we were able to dial in a little bit and make some changes. Now, we didn't spend too much time. We probably spent 2 or 3 hours putting on the dyno and doing some testing. But for the most part, the end objective for me was to really get the bike to just have, clear response, right? So great response coming out of the gate, great response while I was riding, and during, the times where you're hitting corners and going up and down hills and stuff. All that stuff factors in, especially if you're riding 2 up.
Yes.
Then you really want to make sure that the bike's performance is doing great. But for the most part, the Power Commander 6, I was very impressed with it.
Yeah.
Ron didn't mention, but I think it was like $400 or $500.
$500.
It was like $500. Super inexpensive, very easy to put on the bike. I think it probably took him about 1.5 hours to get it on. Now you have to do a little bit more access versus when we get into the ECU on the wiring solutions. The Power Commander did require a little bit more access to be able to get it installed. But overall, I loved it. It changed the bike. Fuel efficiency even went up.
Yes.
So I started getting even better numbers than what I was getting before.
And then what I was getting.
Yeah, and then even what Ron was getting. So the Power Commander 6 is a very great product, very great system to be able to put on the bike.
Yeah, and so like if it's definitely something that because we're about to talk about the Impact Wiring Solution, and I'm telling you it's awesome. It's a total upgrade over the Power Commander. However, it's about $1,600. So it's a lot of cost in that. And then on top of that, you're gonna wanna pay somebody to actually spend the time to dyno tune it and really dial it in. And a good dyno tuner is gonna be anywhere from $700 to $800 for them to dyno tune it on top of this $1,600 that you're paying for the ECU Impact Wire Solution. But you're gonna get way better performance. We're gonna get into that in just a minute. Now, one thing that I would say about the Power Commander is that, again, it's an affordable option. And if you wanted to keep your warranty, it's a good option because it's just a piggyback system. You can easily pop and take it off, and you still have all your regular ECU on there, the factory, everything. So it's a solution if you just don't want to spend a little money and you want to keep your warranty. It's something that you might consider. I just recommend talking to different mechanics on it because some people don't like the Power Commander at all. Some mechanics we talk to, some actually love it and think it's a really good option. So it's basically preference, but we're just Ray's giving you his feedback and kind of our experience as we dealt with it with these bikes and everything. And so now let's go ahead and get into the Impact Wiring Solutions. Guys, this is a phenomenal product. And if you have a VVT bike, it's really the only solution right now. I know that it is was it Thunderheader or
Thundermax.
The Thundermax actually, they have one. If you have the new body style, but it's not VVT, that is an option. However, from everybody that I've heard and that I've seen so far, the Impact Wiring Solution just does so much more and is capable of so much more. So it's not just a system that's going to get you by now, but it's a system that will get you by for the future if you're looking at new, innovative things that you want to do and add to your bike. I'm just hearing raving reviews on this. And so Ray and I, we were hearing about it when it first came out, and we went back and forth about, man, $1,600? Like, I don't know about this. It needs to do like a world beater, you know? And so anyway, we kind of kept hearing about it. We made some calls. I made a lot of calls, and we talked. We were actually going to be some of the first trials on some of our bikes to do it. But when it came down to it, it was just so unknown when it first came out. And with it being a $1,600 purchase and then needing another $700 to $800 to do a tune, we just kind of said, well, let's just hold off and let's see what we continue to hear about it. So we held off, and then we just started to hear all of these great things, great numbers, things that we couldn't believe that they were getting just out of the ECU change. And when we started hearing all these things and talking about it, we actually, it was
Wood Cycle, yeah.
Wood Cycle.
We were able to talk to the guy at Wood Cycle, and he was able to give us a lot of information. And it was perfect timing because we were at the dealership and we were talking with a mechanic, and we decided to just call him. And the guy answered the phone, and we sat on the phone for 30, 45 minutes. Super great guys. They were really
knowledgeable.
Yeah, really knowledgeable. But to take the time out of the day to be able to sit there and talk to us.
Yes.
Let us ask the questions, right? Because here we are, we're spending money, number one, but we're also wanting to make sure that the next one we get is going to be the one that's going to be, like Ron said, something that lasts a while.
Right.
Versus having to spend $500, $1,000, $1,500, you know, over and over and over. I mean, before you know it,
yeah,
you probably could have put a 135 in it, right?
Exactly.
So,
and the cool thing about putting a 135 is that we are seeing guys with the Impact Wiring Solution and the 135 pull out some crazy numbers.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's awesome. So that's what we were looking for, future-proofing the bike.
So anyways, super phenomenal guy. Talked to us for about 30 or 45 minutes, kind of give us a lowdown of what they were seeing on some of the other bikes that were set up similar to how ours are set up.
Right.
So I was super excited. Matter of fact, I think it was like 3 or 4 days later, I ended up just ordering it. I was like, hey, what's it gonna hurt, right? Yep. You know, if it doesn't do what we want it to do, then we could just send it back. And that was something else he had said, hey, if it's, you know, if it doesn't meet what you're looking for, just call me. We'll take the unit back. We'll be able to put it on another bike, or maybe the dealership that you're working with will be able to put it on the bike that they're working on. So that was super comforting to know that we had an option. If it didn't fit for us, that we were able to send it back.
Yeah, and I think he did that knowing that how phenomenal the product was.
That we were going to get it.
There was no way we were going to send it back.
Yeah, we were going to be like, yes.
Yeah.
He suckered us into it.
Yes. So yeah, Ray went ahead and ordered it and got it coming in. Now, one of the things that you need that it had is that you have the wideband O2 sensors in there for the dyno tuning.
Yeah.
So I just still had I only had slip-ons on my bike. I still only had my stock header pipe. So I was still trying to figure out, listen to different exhaust system, figure out what I wanted. So I wasn't even sure yet. So I wasn't quite ready. But Ray already had his on there. He was ready to go. So all he needed to do was order it. So we went ahead and ordered it so we could get started putting it on. And again, this product was very new when he first got it. So Tom, it was the first one that he had ever done. He was just now hearing about it himself. And so speak a little bit about kind of y'all process through that.
Yeah, so got the unit in, got it scheduled into the dealership, got it up there. Tom took probably about a day or so to kind of go through to see where the wideband sensors, obviously they're going to go where your current O2 sensors are, but with my particular setup, he had to make some minor adjustments on the rear one because it was hitting on some stuff. So he had to make some modifications to the actual header. He had to cut it and move it in a position to where when that wideband O2 sensor was on there, that it wasn't hitting or vibrating against the back of the engine. I can't remember exactly where it was. So he got that all figured out. I think it took him probably about a half a day or so. He calls me up and I wanted to go out there and be there while he put it on the dyno so we could do some video footage of the actual bike being dyno tuned. It was super cool to see him run it through the ringer and to see the exhaust get super heated up and really orange. But I would say that we probably spent about 3 to 4 hours, maybe it might have even been longer than that, maybe 5 hours. He had the bike in on the dyno, did the first couple of tests and checks, took it off, we put it back on the lift, did some adjustments on some stuff, and then put it back on the dyno for the final run. And I mean, it was phenomenal just to see the numbers that were coming out of it.
Wow.
Now, the thing that, since the product is so new, a lot of men don't have the knowledge or experience of the actual program, because the program requires you to kind of understand the format and of that system and the way he's got it set up.
Right.
But we got on the phone with the engineer that actually developed the ECU, Ben with Wiring Solutions, and we were able to talk to him. Man, we spent easy a couple hours on the phone. He sent a bunch of data to the dealership. That way they could have it for future reference to be able to install on other bikes. But as we sat there and went through the tuning process, it was really cool because we could see the numbers where when we first started in the tuning, like Ron was saying with the Commander, it had like 115 or somewhere around there.
115.
And we'd see with it just putting the ECU on there, it was doing about 117. It was doing with no tuning, it bumped it up like a couple of horsepower and a couple of torque. But then to watch him go through the process and see the horsepower climb, the torque climb, that was really, really cool to be able to experience. So now that I've got the ECU installed, we've gone through. Now, we haven't done the full tune. We're going to get in a little bit more details, but...
Yeah, and I think, so one of the things is that, obviously, this is at the dealership, so Tom is doing it. He's talking with Ben. Again, this is the VVT bike. It was all new. So I don't think Tom wanted to push or risk too much with it, being, again, an aftermarket tuner and then not, again, kind of being new. So we definitely, and then plus it was at the beginning, and since then we've seen guys get even more with adjusting some time and different things, get more power out of the bikes. But okay, so I was not there when they put the Impact Wiring Solution on and when he did all of that. So he ended up bringing the bike to me later. We'll get into that in just a minute.
Yeah.
But one of the things, so basically what happened, so originally the bike was at the 112 horsepower. Then we went to the 115 horsepower with the Power Commander. Well, then he went all the way to 121 on the horsepower with the Impact Wiring Solution and a little bit of dyno tuning, not like, you know, 5 or 6 hours of tuning. And then on the torque, so originally with the torque, he was at 122, and then he went to 125 with the Power Commander, and then at the end it was 136. So 136 with the Impact Wiring Solution. And so that's where we are right now with the bike. And I will tell you guys, so my bike is probably pushing somewhere around that 112 to 122 because I have the same heavy air breather. I don't have an Aftermarket exhaust, but I do have the slip-ons. And as we've seen in multiple videos, one of the biggest things that impact these bikes from stock is the heavy air breather. It is very confined to stock one. Once you change it, you get a lot more from the bike. And so I'm probably pushing somewhere around those numbers. And so Ray came over, he was telling me, he was calling me, he's like, Ron, this thing is so much better. You can't believe it. I was like, what, man? It's just an ECU, like, it can't be that much, you know, it can't be that much. But come on over, let me check. He said, no, you got to ride this thing. You got to ride this thing. I was like, okay, come on. So Ray comes over to my house. It's dark by that time.
Yeah, we usually don't ride at night either, no. But I'm like, you got to ride this thing. Yeah, just like, I mean, it was just phenomenal. I mean, yeah, it was jaw dropping the whole way over. Like, yes. I even pulled over like 3 times because he wouldn't answer the phone. And I'm like, I'm finally like, you know what? I'm just going straight to his house. I don't care if he's there. I don't care if he's in his underwear. I'm banging on the door. He's going to come out. He's going to ride this bike. And yeah. So he was actually there, praise God. And, yeah. And you know, so I said, hey, man, you got to go ride the bike. And he's like, all right, get on mine. And I'm like, no, go right. He's like, no, come with me. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. So I start following him. I couldn't even keep up with him, but so we just jumped on the highway. We ran probably like 2.5, 3 miles up. Yes. We exited off and pulled into a gas station. And, but on the way, we're like, you know, I would catch back up to him and he'd be like, you know, like,
like a little kid.
Yeah, like a little kid. So when we pull over to the gas station, it was phenomenal because we have a little inside deal between us and the group, but yeah. It's Popcorn Ron. So when we pulled over, he was so ecstatic. I mean, jumping up. He was like, oh my gosh, like, how did this ECU make this much of a change?
I wish I'd had it on video, but yes. I don't. I wish I did. Yeah, it was so fast. He's like, just come on. I was like, okay, whatever. I wasn't like prepared. And I wish I'd had it on video, but good. I might got a clip of Popcorn Run. Maybe we can get that inserted in so y'all can see what he's talking about. But guys, man, so I get on the bike. I'm like, again, when you do little bitty mods like your exhaust, the breather, I mean, you feel it. It's a little better, but it's, you know, it's not like huge or whatever. And then when you do something like, say, a cam or you change the heads or something like that, you do a board, then yeah, you can really tell it, right? Yeah. So only thing he did, we had already did the Power Commander. So the only thing he did was the ECU and change it and tune it a little bit. So I didn't expect it to make that much of a difference.
Yeah,
you know?
With the Power Commander, it got more horsepower, it got more torque out of it. But really what I think I saw the most was the clarity, right? It brought the clarity. I would consider, like, if we go back to automotive, when you have a car that's out of timing, that's super rough, and then you get the timing corrected, it brings it in real smooth. Mm-hmm. It really, I didn't have any timing issues. I didn't have anything, but the Power Commander eliminated that. So I knew there was a little bit more power to the bike, but man, putting the ECU, like changing out and putting that ECU in there with the Impact Wiring Solutions. Yeah. What a difference. I mean, I can't even, I mean, all I can say is like, it's very, very worth the money. Yes. It's definitely a big improvement. Yes. And then it goes to show to us, right? A lot of guys have talked about the VBT. You know, me and Ron have mentioned in other videos about how we felt like now we're the stepchildren because they've moved into the ST and it doesn't have the VVT, but here we are as the stepchildren of, with Harley, you know, with the VVT. But this motor and this bike has so much opportunity. And I feel like if we're patient enough to allow these men and women that are out and they're trying to develop new things and develop better products, if we're patient, we'll see things like this with the ECU wiring solutions. And
Right.
I mean, because man, this is phenomenal. And Ron, Ron's, we've got some other great news some stuff that we've walked into, another blessing that's coming the way.
Yes.
For us to be able to have more knowledge, more power, so some great things are coming up and super exciting.
Yes, we are super excited. So again, when I hopped on his bike with the Impact Wiring Solution and I took off on it, and I mean, I was hitting it, and man, the power, the response of it, the responsiveness, I mean, it was like a wild banshee. I was like, when we pulled off, I was like, dude, this is awesome, man. This is awesome. I got to get this. I got to figure out my exhaust so I can get this thing because it is so much better. And even we went on the trip after that, and I remember I'm like, man, I'm usually right there with Ray, but Ray was pulling off from me because of his power now. So guys, definitely recommend it. It's worth the $1,600. It's worth the dyno tune. So I went ahead and started looking for my exhaust. I ordered my exhaust, so I ordered a full Dominator system, Chromeworks, for the bike. So for my bike, so that way I could go ahead and get everything installed. I already ordered the Impact Wiring Solution. One of the things that we got coming up now is I was actually kind of looking online, following Impact Wiring Solution, following Ben, who is one of the owners and developers of Impact Wiring Solution, and was looking for a mechanic locally in the Texas area that could, go a little deeper into these Impact Wiring Solution, get into that timing, really spend the time to develop the dyno tune on these and everything. And so one of his, I was on Facebook kind of going through some things on his page, and he recommended All Makes Cycle Repair and Clean, and a guy named Finn. And so when he made that recommendation about Finn, I started looking into Finn's repair shop and mechanic shop. And so basically these guys develop race bikes. They Harley race bikes, sport bikes. They do turbo bikes. They do supercharged bikes. They do it all. They're not just one thing shop. They do everything. And so they have been doing this for years. And so I ended up calling up All Make Cycles and talking with Finn. And so we got into conversation about exhaust and different things, about Ray's experience with Impact Wiring Solution, their experience with Impact Wiring Solution, with the VVT bikes. We talked about all of that. And so through those talks, I had to kind of basically let him know that I had the channel and I wanted to bring video of him dyno tuning the bikes, and I was going to go ahead and order exhaust, which I did. And I went ahead and ordered the Impact Wire Solution from him, which I did. And I was preparing to go down to put the exhaust on, to put the Impact Wiring Solution on, get it dyno tuned. Well, we were kind of scheduling all of that. Well, then I reach out and I see that there is a cam that is coming out for the VVT bikes. So I start seeing these posts. So I reach out to Finn and I said, hey man, I'm seeing that you guys actually have this new cam that's coming out from Cyclerama, the VVT cam, because we had already been calling around looking at cams. People were trying to develop them. They were actually looking for people to bring bikes for them to test and do different things, and they were not there. So none of these cams were ready to sell. Well, Finn actually finally gets one that's ready to sell. He says, I called him up and he said, yeah, Cyclerama, they actually have sent out like 5 of these cams. I got 2 of them, and I told him about Ray we would really like to get them for both bikes. And he said, well, you better order them now if you want them, because I got 2. And so once they're gone, they're gone. So I went ahead and we paid for the cams. And so now we're scheduled to go out January 16th, and we're gonna go out to Killeen, Texas, and we're gonna take the bikes out there, be out there for about 3 days, and we're gonna go ahead for Ray's bike, put the new cam, the Cyclerama VVT cam, so it doesn't eliminate the VVT, you actually keep it. And we're actually going to have it put on my bike along with the Impact Wire Solution and the Chromeworks 2-in-2 Dominator system. And we're going to get the bikes dyno tuned. So we are going to be bringing that video, that footage, that information. So you're going to get to see the difference from Ray bike in this stage 1 form. Then we add the cam with the Impact Wire Solution. You're going to see the difference in those numbers. We're going to show you some difference in the numbers on mine, a little bit difference in the exhaust. So you're going to get to see a lot of footage. This is going to be really great for research. This is going to be really great for you guys to see how these cams actually perform and work. Troubleshooting, these guys are going to work with us. Finn is going to work with us to make sure the bikes are smooth and just right and perfect. So I'm very excited to bring that footage to you, to have that opportunity. That's one of the reasons why we started the channel, was just to be able to bring information that we were learning, that we were experiencing from our bikes, and bring it out as soon as we get it out so people can make a decision on where they wanted to spend their money, not wasting their money, and just seeing if things were going to work or not, and getting the real feedback, and not just feedback from one person, from multiple people, so you can make an informed decision. Because that was one of the things that I found when I got my first Harley, was where do I spend my money and make sure I'm making my money work for me, and I'm not wasting money on products that don't really work or don't give me the result that I want. So I'm super excited to bring this to you guys, and we're gonna have fun bringing it, and we just appreciate you from tuning in. So please like, subscribe, stay tuned, give us comments, give us feedback, tell us what you'd like to see. But we're excited, and we're gonna have this coming to you soon. So we'll see you soon. RJ out.